Tyrone Bowman Live. Welcome to the program, everybody. According to an article written in the 19th Daily News Letter, the article was written by Arian Rumler. The headline reads, NCAA bans trans women from women's sports in reversal of a 15-year-old policy. So let's talk about this on tonight. So here it goes. The NCAA banners hang before the start of the division men's swimming and diving championship held at the Gene K. Friedman Aquatic Center on March 22nd, 2022 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So, as you can see, those are the banners right there. See them? Now let's get down to the essence of this article. The largest college sports governing body in the country has completely banned transgender women student athletes from competing in women's sports following President Donald Trump's executive order threatening federal funding for schools that allow trans girls on girls' teams. The National Collegiate Athletic Association, known as the NCAA, on Thursday rescinded its former guidance for transgender student athletes, which had been in place since 2010 and was amended in 2022. For the last 15 years, the organization had allowed trans women to compete on women's teams after completing one calendar year of testosterone suppression treatment. In 2022, the NCAA called for each sports national governing body to set rules for transgender student athletes, an approach that aligns with Olympic standards. Now, the NCAA says that only cisgender women can compete in women's sports. Transgender girls and women in school sports are still allowed to practice on women's teams, the group said in a news release, and trans student athletes are still eligible to receive standard benefits like medical care. Sports with mixed men's and women's NCAA championships like rifle are exempt from the new policy, which is effective immediately. Although the NCAA's new policy follows Trump's pledge to keep men out of women's sports, it appears to allow an exception for trans masculine people. The policy also bars transgender men on testosterone from competing in women's sports, but those students can still practice on women's teams. If wanted, anyone regardless of gender identity can compete in men's sports. Out of over 500,000 student athletes attending NCAA schools, fewer than 10 are transgender, NCAA President Charlie Baker said during a congressional hearing in December. The NCAA is an organization made up of 1,100 colleges and universities in all 50 states that collectively enroll more than 530,000 student athletes. We strongly believe that clear, consistent, and uniform eligibility standards would be best serve today's student athletes instead of a patchwork of conflicting state laws and court decisions. To that end, President Trump's order provides a clear national standard, Baker said in a statement Thursday, quote, close quote. However, the scope of who would potentially be impacted by the executive order is not clear. Experts said LGBTQ plus advocates, as well as congressional Democrats, have argued that blanket bans on trans girl participation in sports has the potential to endanger all girls and women. Last month, as the House passed a bill to ban trans girls from girls' sports in schools, House Democrats raised alarms about what enforcement of the ban could look like. They pointed to state examples of a cisgender girl in Utah enduring harassment after being publicly and falsely portrayed as a transgender, and Florida's High School Athletics Association asking students for information about their sex assigned at birth. As Trump signed the executive order on Wednesday, he stated that 2 gold-winning Olympians are transgender women. This is false. The Algerian boxer Aman Halif and Ling Yuting, a featherweight boxer from Taiwan, were subjected to global scrutiny last year after Trump and other powerful figures targeted them for being transgender, which they weren't. No, they targeted them from being minorities. Let's just tell it the way it is. all this verbiage and all this sophistication with all this language, which I can read very well. I read between the lines as well. This kind of misinformation is part of how anti-trans rhetoric fuels violence toward women of color. Why black people got to be brought into this? What does this have to do with black people? Including cisgender women experts and transgender athletes told the 19th, know what will end up happening? You will get some crazed MAGAite who decides they want to go out and kill somebody and then try to justify it. The NCAA noted Thursday that individual schools have autonomy to determine their own policies around athletic competition, and that schools are ultimately responsible for certifying student athletes' eligibility for competition. Information that documented the NCAA's prior policymaking for transgender student athletes, including submission guidelines and appropriate testosterone levels for each sport, were deleted from the organization's website as of Thursday. So, what we have happening here is that individuals just want to keep the money flowing into the university so they can continue to get big salaries and live off the public trough. Never surrender, never quit.